voice of growth, mastering the mind and market.
I started my journey with one class, which was Mind, Brains, and Computers. I've been with IBM for 25 years. It has been, for me, a great big candy store. Who would have thought that I'd be leading the IBM lab or the state of Arizona? I didn't. We shouldn't call it artificial intelligence. It's augmented intelligence for humankind. To build out tools and an ecosystem to make our lives better. The fuel that runs artificial intelligence, automation, machine learning is data. And now we're talking about agentic AI, where it thinks for itself, it does for itself, it could be a bit more independent. It's still a bit of a toddler. Technology is at their fingertips. You and I didn't have that in the early phases of our lives.
No.
They've had it their whole life. So why not ask them to help be the stewards of the future as it relates to technology? It's like a full circle experience.
Calline, you are someone that I have admired for a while, and I finally got the pleasure of meeting you a while ago at our breakfast club and heard you speak. And the moment I heard you speak, I thought to myself, you need to be on the podcast. Not only were you able to break down some elements of the way that the internet works that I have never thought about, but just your story and the fact that you've one of 6 kids, grew up in Yuma, you spent time in Sandia. There's a lot there that really paints a beautiful picture that I think that our audience deserves to hear. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much for having me. And I'm so happy that I impressed you on that presentation, because I was so nervous going into it. Because that's not the audience I generally serve, if that makes sense.
Well, who is the audience you serve typically?
Usually it's technology leaders and also some business leaders. So it's just, it was a different audience. Of course, there were business leaders, though I didn't know if I would be able to bring in like a valuable message that resonated with them, because it was the first time I had ever articulated IBM's value or intent of value in the marketplace to a new audience for me.
I think that's one of the things I admire about you is that you're a rare breed of person who can straddle the very deep technical domain and also make it relatable and make it real. And I think that you obviously are, well, maybe not obviously, but you are the person that is in charge and runs the Tucson operation. So let's start there. Give us an idea of what Tucson does and with respect to IBM. And then I've got some questions beyond that.
Okay. And forgive me, I have my cell phone here just in case a client calls that might be in pain, so I can help.
That's fine.
Okay. So Tucson operation, that actually is my heart. I graduated from the University of Arizona. The fact that I could remain here for a period of time, and then moved with IBM to New York and then came back. It was a fantastic opportunity. The operation here in Tucson focuses on a key component of compute, and that is data storage. And the fuel that runs artificial intelligence, automation, machine learning is data. And so these are data specialists here in the Tucson lab. Just a quick story, forgive me. My father, a professor at U of A, just recently retired. He was with the University of Florida prior. So we were Gators for a while. I learned of IBM and IBM Tucson from that time because it was a year after the unfortunate event in 1986 of the shuttle mission disaster. Later followed an understanding of IBM Tucson and NASA partnering to be able to get data abstraction off the bottom of the ocean
What?
to read the flight recorder. So they were able to understand some of the final moments, even though we could only interpret what we think could have happened. It was IBM Tucson data scientists, polymer scientists, chemical engineers, mechanical engineers, all working together with NASA to be able to listen to the final moments. And all that means is a flight recorder is tape storage that fell on the bottom of the ocean. They were able to take fragments of media because it was pieces
Mhm.
and abstract bits of data in order to pull it together to listen to the final moment.
Wow, this is the black box that people think,
Yeah.
right?
Yes. Black
That's
box.
remarkable.
Correct.
So you were in Florida, 1986, that happens.
Mhm.
So you were already kind of, Tucson IBM was sort of on your radar because of that?
Yes. Well, in from my child, because I was in third grade, so I was pretty young. I just paid attention to the local newspapers, collected like articles because I was so interested in understanding why that event occurred. So it was impactful for so many, especially the families, the lost loved ones. And so I wanted to understand how could something like that happen at that young of an age, and started to collect this information. My father was unaware that I had this interest,
Mhm.
and I understood, okay, well, I don't know what IBM is. I had no idea what the acronym. And later on, I asked him about Tucson, Arizona, and he had accused me of reading some papers out of his briefcase. Why would I ever do that? Well, I had no idea he was looking to apply for a position here at the University of Arizona as an agronomist. So, like for me, I didn't connect those, and then came here. We were in the Yuma facility at that point. He was the director of Yuma Farms and research scientist there. And then I was able to explore understanding where Tucson was based on being so close here in Southern Arizona.
That's remarkable.
So it was great how it all connected,
Mhm.
even though it was a disaster that was very, very sad in 1986, and also impactful for young people like me to understand why, why did science go wrong?
Mhm.
That's what I thought in my head at that point.
So yeah, that must have been a very impactful, trajectory changing moment for you. It kinda was for me as well. I mean, I was in 8th grade and, or maybe 7th grade, and I remember it, I was in, my English class, and somebody came in and told us the news, right? It's this big thing because it's maybe not as relevant today as much as it was back in the day. Like a
Hmm.
shuttle flight was a big deal, and especially there was a teacher on board, and there was
Yeah.
all this sort of stuff around it. And I remember it happening, and for me, it was a kind of it was a pause. I didn't know what was happening. I mean, it was what, 13 years old. I kind of knew, but I didn't know. But I knew that it was something big, and I knew that it was going to be something that was going to be, all across the news, and it was going to change a lot of things. And I think that obviously for you, it changed your trajectory in life.
Yeah. It's actually helped solidify the foundation of wanting to work in technology.
Hmm. So you spent time at Sandia Labs, right, before you
Hmm.
came here?
Yes, Sandia, and also spent time not physically there, but working in Los Alamos as well as Lawrence Livermore. So a lot of those national laboratories work together. And if I was lucky enough to be accepted into my first year, um, was just graduating from high school,
Hmm.
and I was accepted to work in a summer internship program at Sandia National Laboratories. At that time, I was working on a project to lead or pull together a round robin analysis of, how can I explain it simply? Um, a steel containment vessel that surrounds a nuclear reactor.
Okay.
So there is steel that basically holds in a potential reaction and also the reactor itself. Similar to like a water bottle, if you turn it
Hmm.
over,
Yeah,
the actual steel containment vessel looks like a water bottle if you
I
invert it.
see. So you were doing that, and that, what was the degree that you got, I mean, obviously you did that internship, and then did you
Mhm.
stick with the same thing throughout your career,
So,
your academic career?
eh, I wanted to go into, like, more of a multidisciplinary set of, course, and that was not something that was advisable from many of the PhDs that were in my family.
Mhm,
So, they felt that you would choose, like, go with the College of Sciences and focus there. For them, it was more hard sciences, so whether it was chemistry, water, things like that. With me, I decided to take a different path. I started my journey with one class, which was Mind, Brains, and Computers.
mhm,
And that course, which is actually in communications, inspired by some of the thinkers like, Chomsky, to think about how humans build technology to be more like our own self and our own
mhm,
image. And similar to what we were speaking about before, like Mother Earth.
mhm,
So we take things of experience in life and we build it out of technology. Watching an insect, taking an attribute or use case from an insect that is so efficient. Like, why not?
mhm,
So, anyways, Minds, Brains, and Computers opened my mind to, hey, I could do possibly a degree in human communications and also I could actually go take computer science courses, and then I learned of wanting a little bit of the business side, so MIS is where I went, so information
mm,
systems, 'cause, with that was mostly inspired by data, wanting to understand, okay, the sources, the inputs, outputs.
mhm. Which is kinda crazy because what you're doing now is the business element, you're managing data, and as I just learned a few minutes ago, you're also moving into a new role where you're gonna be supporting your customers in understanding the aspects of resiliency, data recovery, and so forth. And I know this is a hot off the press, so maybe you
Yeah,
haven't digested it too much, but what does that role mean to your clients and the world? I mean, I know that you're, and I want
yeah.
to go into this. I'm so excited of understanding how IBM is really part of the backbone, the connective tissue of the backside of the internet.
So it is an amazing role for me, so forgive me if I get too excited at moments, and you'll have to calm me down somewhat. Um, for me, it's like a full circle experience. I've been with IBM for 25 years, did not think so. It has been for me a great big candy store where I could have all these different experiences, these different roles, playing with data, working on engineering, architecting new solutions. Like it was fantastic, the experience. And I don't feel that even though I work for one company, I didn't ever feel that I only had one role or I had one set of skills that I focused on purely, like here's your swim lane,
Yeah.
Colleen. I was able to explore other thinking, other swim lanes. So to answer your question, I was interested in going back to the disaster in Florida with the shuttle disaster, that is. I wanted to understand for myself, like, meaning. And I thought, okay, well, working in technology, I could actually help build systems, like, and this is part of my experience, to self heal, self diagnose,
Mm,
basically, and do it unto itself in its own system of a unit, right? And so I was thinking this atomic thinking, autonomic thinking, I felt that with this, I could actually branch into doing more of this resiliency, like 5 nines of availability. Like, how do you secure full safety of
mhm.
something
Yeah.
or a system? So, anyways, with this system, now I'm able to help build like a system architecture to um, take to the marketplace. Like, in one of the instances is called Cyber Vault, as well as, forgive me, another acronym is GDPS. And what these are is disaster recovery, just like you said, resiliency assets that could come together as a solution to help protect um, end users from ransomware, from security issues or concerns they may have with their actual devices or these larger enterprise businesses at this point in time. So, coming out of the gate, the role is to take these reference architectures and provide enterprise clients this value of protection to protect their data for their end users that we all participate in.
So is this different than storing the data in multiple places? This is something that's more inherent, right? More
Yeah.
deeper.
So there is a major component of data storage, and you have multiple copies. That's like, so how do you manage your data? You generally have another copy. So you
Mhm.
have a golden copy or a platinum copy to restore if, let's say, something happens, right?
Mhm.
Well, with this is you're building these optimizers in order to protect you or enabling fences of protection for these businesses. So this is just an analogy in my head that I think would be easier for people to understand
Mhm.
is like for years, we had a swimming pool at our first home, and I was always paranoid with such a young baby and then eventually daughter that she could drown.
Mhm.
So by the time we sold the house, I had 4 fences around that pool to protect not only her, but also protect others
Mhm.
from accessing that pool
Mhm.
to possibly hurt themselves, not under my watch or my husband's watch. And so, what these fences, it's technology fences that we would be building
Mm.
to make it more secure,
Interesting.
not necessarily keep you from the pool or keep you from the data when you need to access it, but give you the appropriate fences in order to protect the whole, if that makes
Yeah, it
sense.
does. But you mentioned something earlier that I definitely want to tug at as well. You said self-healing.
Mhm.
What does that mean?
So some of these systems actually can self reset, can actually do like a soft boot inside the system that might be like microseconds of impact that could impact something at the application layer.
Mhm.
Though I would say, or something that would be an analogy is humans at times, in order to self heal, we faint.
I see.
And so, in other words, just like we sometimes cannot resolve a problem we have on our devices or our laptops, whatever it is, we turn it
Right.
off and then we turn it back on.
Right.
Well, these systems can turn off components that are not acting as well as it usually does.
Okay. Would you say this is more like an agent living with the data, and if it sees that the data is or something's struggling, the agent, I'm using that term loosely,
Mhm.
the data agent goes in and does the repair or reboots or whatever. Would that be a good analogy as
Yeah,
well?
yeah, I would say that is good. And also, it's like kind of a soft reset where it's like, hey, something isn't so right.
Mhm.
Maybe I need to go take a nap.
Got it.
And though you don't want to make it inaccessible to access the data, so of any system, so you put some of it to sleep. You
Mhm.
take a nap for these instances, and then you come back online. And you look to minimize how long that nap is within the hardware, within the software to revive it, and then all the system then comes back online is healthier.
Interesting.
That's the reason why for humans, sleep is so important for
It
our
is.
brains, which is the first computer processor,
Yeah.
or the first processor, I should say, on the planet. And our brains have to heal overnight.
Yeah, very true. I wanna go into some of the aspects of what IBM does,
Mhm,
kinda globally initially, and then we'll kinda jump into some of the questions. I am going to pick up my phone, use face recognition to unlock my phone, navigate to a website, buy a 1 kilogram thing of creatine,
mhm.
use Stripe to pay for it, that my credit card saved on my phone, have it shipped to my house, and then I'm, turn off the phone and I'm gonna put it right there. How much of that has IBM on the back end?
Pretty, actually, all the touch points, especially based on it just ran through a data center in order to enable that use case. So your local compute, so it has to the Wi-Fi connection in order to enable the transaction.
Hmm.
The transaction is running off some hardware,
Hmm.
some enterprise software somewhere. IBM serves infrastructure, hardware, as well as enterprise software, as well as services, and we enable consulting services as well as um, a global full stack operation of serving data centers worldwide. So, yes, most likely you just touched IBM in multiple instances of that use case.
That's crazy. IBM is one of those companies that people don't really understand what's done. I mean, obviously, a global giant, been
Mm,
around for over 100 years, has deep roots in compute, from the big computers to the mini computers
mm,
to the microcomputers to the IBM compatible, quote unquote, and the
mm,
IBM domain, the XTs. I mean, I was part of that. I was building computers when I was, 11 and 12 and 13, and had a TRS-80 from Radio Shack and had a Commodore computer. I mean, I went through all that. And so, and I also went into the business domain, and I went into sales.
mhm.
And there was a term that you probably know in the sales domain. Nobody ever got fired for buying
Buying
IBM.
IBM.
Yeah, nobody ever got fired for buying IBM or Big Blue. There was a whole mantra about IBM sales guys and gals
Mhm.
wearing suits. It was like a thing, right?
Yeah.
Having said all that, having even with the backdrop of all walking me through what we just talked about, data resiliency and all that, where do you see IBM going in the next, I wasn't going to say 100 years, but that's kind of far. I'll say the next 25 years.
Okay. So, and by the way, you can say 100 years because we're thinking that. What's amazing about, from my perspective, IBM, and this is Colleen's opinion, is the fact that we have a research arm. So much of our business arms, whether it's infrastructure, software, services, consulting, we feed the overall IBM company, yes, and invest in research because the goal is we want to live another 100 years, or we want to participate in making the planet smarter. And so there's that overall good aspect. Now, just going back, because I have to say this when you were at your entry, um, as of yesterday, I was announced to go into sales. I'm not a female seller that's coming in with that suit. So I guess I could be seen as a future seller. And I'm different. Multicultural female that honestly from technology, so I'm a little nervous because I've never been in sales before. What's great about that is it's new. I can be myself. I can hold to my understanding of technology and provide value to end users, clients. And that's what I'm excited about. Um, and then going back to your reference of quote, IBM is extremely reliable in a number of instances, though I think it's important for people to understand who do we transact with
Mhm.
now globally. We removed ourselves from the commercial, the commoditized marketplace. Like we don't sell like PCs anymore, or typewriters, or registers. Now, many of you may see when you go to a local store, there's an IBM register there. We don't really do that work anymore. We now are more business to business operations and sales. So our company strategy at this point in time is cloud computing and artificial intelligence.
Mhm.
Now realize artificial intelligence for us is, we've been building out artificial intelligence, automation, what we do with data protection for many, many years.
Yeah, decades, probably
Yeah.
60, 70 years at least.
I am with you 100% because when you mentioned like some legacy systems before, immediately I thought of like the mainframe,
Yeah.
the System Z. Now, most banks operate in the back end in data centers globally with mainframe based on the number of transactions that can be processed and its reliability.
Mhm.
Remember, I mentioned the 5 nines of availability.
Yeah.
It's really just to ensure that we are continuously online 24/7 and we resolve problems either autonomically
Mhm.
or possibly with the right services, technical services operator.
Including you that got your cell phone out.
Yes, I'm sorry. I just have
No,
to
it's
do that.
alright. This is part of the this is literally part of the blue that you bleed.
Yeah. It is interesting. Sometimes, like, when you're living through that pain, you're like, "Well, do I have Stockholm syndrome?" Because you're constantly always, like, in the moment or thinking what the IBM way is. "Have I responded to that person appropriately in the last 24 hours?" Oh my gosh, that ends up on your hot list. Though, honestly, it's because so much of IBM, it has great, fantastic people globally, and people give chances to others. Like, I feel like all the time I have to remind myself, it's like, I was born in Las Cruces, New Mexico. It's like, who would have thought that I'd be leading the IBM lab or the state of Arizona? I didn't,
Mhm.
though someone took a chance on me. That's a whole bunch of really good people that happened to work at IBM that did.
Yeah, I mean, you're touching on some really major points. First of all, business at the end of the day is people. It's a collection of people with a culture around it. There's some legacy, there's a vision. That's all it really is. I really admire IBM because of its resiliency and its adaptability over time. We sometimes look at a business over time and we see them change and go in a different direction, adapt, if you will. And oftentimes we don't like that as
Yeah.
consumers. But what we don't understand on the back end is that there's reasons for it.
Mhm.
And IBM has been primarily unapologetic about that shift, which for me is admirable. When I look at a company that is doing something and then they shift and then the market doesn't respond and they end up losing, revenue and all that, well, they made the wrong decision, perhaps. And I can go on and so many examples of that. But with IBM, you you as IBM dropped the personal computer and you said, "Sorry, not sorry. We got bigger fish to fry," which
Mhm.
is admirable, right? Having had your time at IBM and now going into the sales domain, what what gives you the most excitement about how you can support your customers?
Providing value and understanding the pain points of what they're going through, especially in the cybersecurity world. So if I can provide, or the collective us can provide solutions that would resolve some of those issues or what's keeping folks up at night, then I would be doing my job. And that's what I'm most excited about is providing some excellent assets, solutions, pain point removers into the marketplace. And in the end, it secures people end to end.
Mhm. You do a lot in your role with respect, I would assume, with respect to human resources.
Mhm.
You're involved, maybe not frontline, but you're involved with hiring, you're involved with career development, workforce development, all that. Where do you see the industry shifting because of AI with respect to career development?
So I will start with this because I think it's important. It's a one of our prior CEOs, Gina Rometty, said we shouldn't call it artificial intelligence. It's augmented intelligence for humankind. We're building out technology to enable efficiencies. So many of you can watch like things on like LinkedIn video clips of like Steve Jobs being interviewed and talking about, something like AI in the future. Notice the root of all those videos. And I think Jenny's overall point was it's to build out tools and an ecosystem to make our lives better. to be more efficient so we can capture and understand these higher value. And so it helps me understand that our intent is to deliver solid solutions on time for 24 by 7 accessibility. We help clients or customers and users, whatever you think to call them, to provide an end-to-end experience that is best. So in this AI world, we're looking to ingest data efficiently, automate processes to ensure efficiencies so we can start thinking and focusing on higher value. So think about like before you had your computer, you had your smartphone, what's made your life a lot easier?
Mhm.
How many people like pull out maps anymore? Like in the car on the
Yeah.
fly. No, they use their smart devices. And that's a bunch of really smart engineers, scientists, thinkers that have come up with the big ideas
Mhm.
to make things a lot easier. And that's what we hold to in this world of AI, so to
Mhm.
speak, is for us within IBM, I don't think AI, when we're talking about it in the first phase of 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, and now we're talking about agentic AI where it thinks for itself, it does for itself, it could be a bit more independent. It's still a bit of a toddler
Mm.
when you're thinking about the stage of the human aspect. And I actually don't think there is a worry as long as we, in partnership with IBM Research and the research institutions like the University of Arizona,
Mhm.
Arizona State University, NAU, all these great local universities, we partner with them so we get some of the new thinking as well
Mhm.
to build out what we're doing with quantum computing, which is the next generation
Yes.
of compute. It's different. It's not just zeros and ones anymore. So most people just have to realize, like, I guess, oh, well, what is quantum? I don't understand quantum physics. And you can use your chat AI of choice, your application to look up what quantum
Mhm.
is. Quantum computing, from my simplest view, is like just imagine spinning a coin. The heads and tails at a given point in time almost becomes one.
Yeah.
Like you're, in essence, playing in a third dimension, so to speak.
Mhm.
That can be concerning or scary for some, not for others, because they understand the dynamics of that third layer
Yeah.
and what we can explore and be more efficient. So once we get some of the AI validated and we continue to improve and grow that, we actually think there will be something even more impactful for the next 100 years in partnership with quantum and when
Yeah.
that comes to bear.
I tend to agree with you. There's a lot of positivity and enablement of a better quality of life because of AI, especially as you said, the toddler phase. There's some folks that mention that AI right now is like an amoeba, single-celled animal, and eventually it'll be, even surpass our collective intelligence. I tend to be more glass half full about things, but there's a whole segment of society that is extremely fearful
Mhm,
of where we're going with AI. If you had an opportunity to have a conversation with somebody who is just wants to go and put their head in the sand because it's coming, it's here. The
mhm,
genie is already out of the bottle. You can't put it back in.
mhm.
What would you tell that person about their fears concerning AI?
I like your view, the more optimistic, glass is half full. At the same time, the part where it's empty, it's always good to live with this understanding or having this idea of paranoia. We should always be thoughtful because there's always bad and good actors out
Mhm.
there. And so to be on the right side of history with regards to AI is participate in the marketplace with AI and see how you can make it part of your life so it's more thoughtful. and realize, I think as stewards, taking a step back, because you asked me something very complex and it's tough to really say it so simply, is that um, I think as a technologist, and you being a technologist as well, we need to do a better job in our global ecosystem or our communities of explaining the fundamentals of or essentials of traditional compute.
Mhm.
Why do we have our smartphones? And what do our smartphones enable us? And we ourselves can articulate or reflect some of that. It's all beneficial. It's been mostly good, less bad, even though there are some bad
Right.
incidents, things that you can highlight as well. So, how can we learn from that and continuously learn to ensure that we improve as we adopt?
Mhm.
Though that I don't think that we've done a good job of explaining essentials of why compute is necessary, why data storage is necessary. These fundamentals will help us then generate in our communities a discussion of why AI is that next thing to embrace as we look to enable technology ecosystem overall.
Yes, I agree. I believe that in some ways, technology, you've heard the term that money, somebody comes in and money, makes lots of money, wins the lottery, whatever.
Yeah,
Money amplifies who you already are.
yeah.
If you were a jerk and you win $1 billion from the lotto, whatever, you're going to be a $1 billion jerk. You're going to talk to people, down to people. You're going to drive around your Ferrari, stubbing your nose at people, whatever. If you're kind and generous, you're going to give it all away. I think in some ways, technology is a reflection of the human side of things.
Mhm,
We want efficiency. We want, efficiency is all about mobility, right? Being able
mhm,
to pay your bills online or make an airplane reservation. Efficiency. We love efficiency as human beings. We love human connection.
mhm,
Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok, all those frameworks are in some way about human connection, about feelings. And I mean, there's
mhm,
cyberbullying, there's the dark side as well. So I firmly believe that. There's also this idea, we talked about AI sort of disrupting the world, which it is.
mhm.
I firmly believe that, to echo your augmented intelligence frame, I believe that AI will not take your job or my job or his job or her job, but people that know how to use AI well will,
Mhm.
right? If you know how to command AI, you're going to displace those that don't lean into it.
Yeah.
What would you say to somebody right now who is a freshman, maybe a sophomore at the university? So they got a little bit of a taste. What would you say to them about what direction they should change their career or their um, energy towards? What would you tell them?
So, I will be selfish for a moment. Most females that I talk to, let's say computer sciences in the College of Science at the University of Arizona, I just told them to invest in mathematic mathematics as well as much a deep learning or thinking through. It's going to be this generation that tells us how we should live with AI. They're gonna be the stewards of protecting us from possibly the worst case. They know their devices. They've grown up with these devices. Technology's at their fingertips. You and I didn't have that in the early phases of our lives.
No.
They've had it their whole life. So why not ask them to help be the stewards of the future as it relates to technology? Specifically, the audience for women is I would really love to see more people, more women like me in the technology space. So forgive me, though there is no question. The great men that I've worked with at IBM have been my ally. They took chances on me. So I as much, I think, the ecosystem overall. So if it was in general, the full population, you're going to serve the solution for us, even if it means a shared service. Like, okay, I want to be a lawyer. I want to be, you talked about human relations. I want to be an HR vice president for a company in the future. Well, that human connection's important, as well as the govern how we govern a system. The lawyers are helpful to us to ensure that we're on the right side of history and we're behaving appropriately and ethically. So I believe that even the shared services will feed into how we'll play in this technology space overall.
Interesting. In your time at IBM, did you ever think about quitting?
Yes. So recently, I would say, and I'll just be transparent. This year, the end of this year, I'll turn 50. And I was thinking, well, maybe I should take a sabbatical because I felt like I needed a form of a reset to do something different. And not that because it was a bad thing, it was just more like I was reflecting and my journal was telling me to explore on the outside. Um, I guess the only thing that I would say that is really big or the has been feeding butterflies in my stomach is what's going on here in the state of Arizona and globally is about semiconductors. So I think about my electric vehicle has over 2,000 semiconductors. So having those fab labs, especially for America's competitiveness,
Mhm.
being built here in the state of Arizona, huge.
Yeah, very much.
And so that's a pretty cool space. It reminds me of the days of IBM e-business when everything is starting to be interconnected and ubiquitous. Well, now, like with chips, you only can do so much in within the axis of X and Y. It's about like atomic layering on a chipset. So I keep thinking, wow, that would be fantastic to work in. Though I don't know. Um, right now, my role is this sales resiliency opportunity, and I think I'll learn if I want to do something different. So the answer to your question is I've reflected on it this past year only because I'm about to hit a major milestone, half my life. Um, though I think it would just be best to be where I'm at, be successful, and then think through what the future holds.
One of the amazing benefits of doing this podcast and having the rare privilege and pleasure to speak with people like you and others is I did an interview with the former CEO of Macy's, who I think you saw
Yes.
and he said, "Bloom where you're planted," which is essentially what you just reflected in
Yes.
a different way. And I too believe that we have a duty to ourselves to cultivate stillness.
Mhm.
I did a whole little series on stillness early on in this podcast. Is you need to reflect, just like sleep is a way for your body to sort of reset and your mind to reset. I think reflection is so powerful, and I'm really excited for you in your sales role because what I've learned about sales and having been a salesperson my almost my entire professional career, except for like maybe 1 year, because as a CEO, you're a sales guy as well.
Mhm.
But the opportunity for you in sales is so bright when you really deepen the understanding that it's all about human connection, amplified. Because when you sell something to somebody who needs it and you enable them and their community to excel, there's such a deep pleasure in that.
Yeah.
There's an old school guy named Zig Ziglar. You can look him up if you don't know who he is. He's an old Baptist minister that became a sales trainer. And he basically, one of his mantras is like, when you sell something to somebody, you're really selling it to yourself as well. You get the same benefit, you get value.
Mhm.
100%. And I mean, I'm sure you've been involved in sales a little bit, but when you get like that first sale and you're like, you recognize that there are 4 wins. I love 4 wins where the customer wins, the customer's customer wins, IBM wins, and you win.
Mhm.
It's just magic. As we sort of round out the end of this podcast, give us a sense of if you had the opportunity to have a day with somebody, morning to night, where you can pick their brain, you can hang out with them, you can do whatever, through any time, any place, could be Cleopatra, could be whoever. Who would it be and why?
All right, so I just recently wrote this in my journal. It's interesting. It's like, wow, how did he know that? Um, so mine was actually a mentor I had within IBM. I mentioned her name a bit ago. She retired from IBM, and I think about her every time the Masters comes up, and that's Ginny Rometty. So yeah, she retired from IBM as the former CEO. I would love to have just a glass of Chardonnay or whatever beverage and have a discussion with her, like, "How's it going? What are you working on? What are you thinking about?" Like, because she's at that point of reflection, consuming all of her experience, and she just left a few years ago, and now coming in, I would love to have that moment where I could ask her, "What are you up to? What's going on?" It'd be great to tap into that history,
Mhm.
so to speak. The other person, and it's not someone that many know, is like a prior individual I worked with. He graduated with IBM after like 40 years of service, was Nicholas D'Onofrio. You can look him up. He's the executive vice president of IBM and of IBM Fellow Emeritus. What is that? Highest technical ranking. Great mind, great thinker. Works on worked in partnership with the National Science Foundation. Like, he's someone that you want to know of because he's pretty impactful and extremely humble. And it was wonderful to meet him in 2008 after, forgive me, being Catholic, celebrating the Lent season. I saw him with ashes on his forehead and I had on mine. And it was just a common connection.
Mhm.
It's like, "Hey, who are you?" "Oh, I'm Nick D'Onofrio." I was like, "Oh my gosh, this guy leads IBM research, like, and is the current EVP reporting to Sam Polisano." Like, I quickly was assessing that, and I was like, "Here I'm in an elevator, like, how can I connect and get to know him?" And was able to work for him in innovation, for IBM Innovation for about a year.
Wow.
I'd I'd love to have another connection point with him.
Well, the rare opportunity could be that you could have connection with both.
Yes.
Last and final question.
Okay.
I promise it'll be a good one.
Okay. And I'm sorry I give you 2, not and you asked for
No,
1.
it's okay. No, this is a conversation, so there's no rigidity here. This is kind of a lot to unpack in one very simple question is, what do you want your legacy to be? In another way, what do you see yourself in 40 years when you're 90? Either way.
So, I do right now hope that my almost 16-year-old actually thinks that I have influenced her life, like, legacy-wise from that vantage point. My brothers and sisters, within my family, I really hope they realize that I'm always willing to be a mediator and help,
Mhm.
and then sometimes helping is just listening. So that's my people legacy for family, daughter, um, ensuring that my husband, because we're celebrating 25 years of marriage this year, which is half our lives, which is amazing to me to think about that. That he recognizes that it's a team sport. He's one of these individuals who came to the table, oh, she has a career, I have a career, we're going to make it work together. So there was never any sort of gender specific roles.
Mhm.
We both just kind of felt like something had to get done and we'd attack it together. And not everyone gets the opportunity of having an equal partner. And he has always been that for me. Now, to answer your question on technology legacy, she helped build autonomic systems, architecture that can self heal, self diagnose, and self serve.
That's powerful. That's powerful. I don't doubt that if God gives you life, you'll be celebrating 40 years from now that exact thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time, Calline. This has been a rare pleasure.
Oh, I greatly appreciate it.
Yeah. Cheers.
Thank you.